Hello, everyone. This is Aditya Mehta, and you are listening to podcast on personality development. We all thrive for success. We work really hard. We earn money. We spend money on the things that makes us happy. And throughout the process, there are some days which are joyful and blissful, and there are some other days where things don't go as planned. But in this entire journey, there are two important days of our lives. What are they? Well, we are going to find out in this episode. Hello and welcome back to podcast on personality development. Today, to let us know about the two most important days of our lives, we have a very proud podcast host who is just 21 years old, and he is a social media guru, a realtor, investor, and a serial entrepreneur. And I don't remember the last time I met anyone who is this young and has done so much things. So please allow me to welcome John Mendes. Hey, John, what's up? How are
Uh,
you doing?
I'm doing well today, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a long time coming. I've been looking forward to get into chat and get into, just hang out with you on your podcast. So I'm looking forward to this.
Of course, I was really looking forward to it, knowing that you are doing so well. And of course, there was a slight jealousy in my heart that, man, this guy is doing some great job and he's a competitor of mine in terms of podcasting. But I feel I don't have to fear anymore because we are collaborating over here. So, it's just wonderful to have you on this show. And John, like, you have done so many things. Okay, so I'm just going to ask this one question before we start. And that would be like, you have been so successful in podcasting and all the other aspects which you are into right now. But did you ever thought that you would be on podcast on personality development interviewed by Aditya Mehta?
Man, that is a great question. Honestly, before I started this podcast journey, I had no idea that I could connect with such amazing people from across the world. I'm tuning in right now from the States. So we are a bunch of hours apart and we have an ocean between us. And somehow with technology, we're able to connect. So I'm just super grateful to be here, man.
Yes, I'm pretty sure, and I'm really grateful to have you here. That was just a funny question. Anyways, going ahead, John, would you like to give a brief introduction of yourselves?
Yeah, I like to keep it nice and simple. My name is John Mendez. I'm the host of the Walk to Wealth podcast. That's with a number two. And that is the show where I enlighten and empower young adults to build wealthy, abundant lives. I also am the founder of Stop and Stare Media, where I help mission driven real estate agents build a strong online presence without the stress, worry, and time that takes that normally to use normal traditional marketing strategies.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Normally for understanding marketing strategies, people spend so much amount of money and they hire some big agencies for doing that. But you are doing that, so and I'm pretty sure you must have learned it quite quickly. So
Yeah.
how did you got into it? How did you thought that, what, you are going to start one marketing agency and you're going to share these amazing marketing strategies which you have?
Yeah, so to give you a little bit of context. So for me, I probably between my span of high school and my 2 years in college, I only posted about maybe 6 or 7 times on Instagram. So I was not a social media strategist. I was not a marketing strategist by any stretch of the imagination. And once I got my license, I ended up leaving college. Once I got my license in real estate, I joined a mastermind. And in the mastermind, they always meet on Clubhouse from 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. So I'm in the call. Normally, I'm at the gym at that time. So normally, I don't participate in the call. I just have it listening in my earbuds. And one of the days, they were talking about social media. And I was like, hey, I know a thing or two. Not from, as I said, not from using it strategically, but just from growing up with it. And mind you, to keep in mind, in the States, in the US, the average age of realtors is over 50. It's like 54 if I'm not mistaken. So most of these realtors are like triple my age. So me growing up with social media, I thought I could just tell them a couple tips that I learned. Hey, I know a thing
Mm,
or two. And so
mm,
I made a quick Facebook post with 5 tips. And these 5 tips were super simple. At least I thought they were simple. And it
mm,
wasn't until then that I realized one of the actual moderators of that mastermind, the host of the mastermind, she was like, "Hey, John, do you mind teaching a class on this?" And I was like, I never taught a class before. And she was like, "John, when do you want it scheduled?" And I learned a very valuable lesson that I didn't know how to word it at that time, but now reflecting, I know how to better word it. But the fish is always the last one to realize it's in water. I didn't know what I had in me, that a little bit of social media knowledge was actually super valuable to people that were in different shoes than me, the people that didn't grow up with social media. And it wasn't until the host asked me to teach a class that I ever even realized that I actually had an innate skill just being and growing up in an age where social media is the thing. And so I ended up teaching my first class. I had over 440 people sign up for that first class. I ended up having another class and a couple more classes. And then I was like, okay, let me turn this into a business. So I started doing content creation services. And for my very first client, the very first one, I realized that creating content for other people is a drag. I already have to create all the stuff. At that point in time, I was posting close to 4 reels a day across my podcast and my personal page, right? And so I was like, man, I really don't want to do this for other people. And so
mm.
I ended up scratching the idea. I thought, oh well, I guess I gave it a try. And then in January, I taught a class on how to leverage ChatGPT for social media marketing. And that class had over 300 signups. And I was like, wait, I love teaching.
Right.
Let me do something with that. So I was going to create a course. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to do a course on social media. And then a little while later, I was like, okay, if I do a course on social media, everyone has a course on social media. So it's like, I'm going to have to either price myself at like $5, which is not going to make it worth it for me, or I need to have a massive social media following to give me any type of credibility. And I was like, you know what, man? I'm going to create a course on podcast guesting and make it for realtors. And that's going to be my end because one, I've been a guest on multiple podcasts, I think a little over 100 so far this year. And then two, I've literally reviewed hundreds of pitches from people trying to get on my show. So I know from both ends of the spectrum, I know from both sides of the coin. I was like, I'll teach this to realtors. And so I ended up soft launching that course and I have 6 people in it right now. We're still in the beta phase. It's all coming together. And I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a course and create a community around that course where I have like office hours and things like that because I really didn't want to do the content creation side of things. And I genuinely feel like agencies, like you can literally, if you knew what I knew, you could literally just hire a VA, pay them maybe with what, 5, $10 an hour, and you could just teach them the stuff that I'm teaching. And then you essentially have your own in-house marketing agencies.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. The ideas which you got throughout the process is really something, many people wouldn't have that idea, I would say. And to be very honest, I would say I have a similar kind of story for going into IT as well. And also coming to a podcast, I never thought like in a million years that I would be hosting a show of my own, that I would be a podcaster. But you know later on, it just came to me super easy, and people were like, do you know that you are really good at it? I mean, and in the very initial stage it was like just for fun, but it turned out to be really a success, like. And the initial motivators for us podcaster, and I'm pretty sure you can understand this because you are a podcaster as well, that the initial motivation which we get from the guest of the show, from being in top 100 podcasts, so I feel those are little things which motivate us, and which tell us that what, you are good at what you are doing. And I think that's something which really really helps us. And for you, I mean, getting through this amazing thing that you started teaching, and then you created a course module which is most helpful for realtors to get on a podcast. I think that's really, really amazing. And when you are doing that, you eventually is not adding value in that realtor's life, but in actuality you are actually adding values to all the lives who are listening to them. So I feel that's a really, really great job. Moving ahead, I really am curious now, so I'm just going to dive into the topic straight away. That is like, two most important days of every person's life. I mean, most of the people have to go on a deep thought process if they have to decide, like, what are the two most happiest or important days of their lives would be. And people, I would like to tell you about it. Like, I'm asking you these questions, and I'll be putting it on a Spotify, so you can literally write the answer as well. So what are the those two happiest day of your lives? Do mention it. And John, what would you like to say about these two most important days of every person's life?
Yeah, so the first day, most people already live. The first most important day is the day that you're born. That is the day you're brought into this earth. Super simple, super straightforward. And I got
Right.
this concept from one of the ladies that was at a speaker school, a training that I was on. She had to present a 1 minute keynote, and she mentioned that quote. She got it from an actor. And I can't recall the actor's name, so this
Mm-hmm.
isn't my idea. But I'm gonna quote her because I heard it from her for the first time ever. Her name is Nani,
Right.
and from the second most important day is the day you find out why, right? Because everyone is born, right? And the second most important day is the day you find out why. Because most people are on autopilot. Most people, they're born, they go to school, they go to get a job, they go retire, they go kick the bucket, right? That's what we call the conveyor belt of life. They're just moving along the conveyor belt, moving along the conveyor belt until they get to the end of the conveyor belt and then they tip over. That's when they pass away. And that's their life well lived. Pretty
Right.
much a sleeping robot, essentially. And
Hmm.
it gets to the point where by the time we're 35, about 95% of our synapses in our brain are already wired, right? So majority of our life is run by our subconscious. Most of our active thoughts barely control what we do on a day to day. So
Right.
unless you start working on yourself, unless you start listening to podcasts like yours, unless you start developing yourself, you'll never break out of that conveyor belt, that rat race. There's so many synonyms to call it the same thing. And so the
True.
day you find out why is the day that everything starts to make sense and life starts to become clearer and simpler, not easier. It
Hmm.
becomes clearer and simpler the day you find out why, because you're no longer lost. You have found your North Star. You have found your moral compass. You have found what the thing is that drives you, that you can orient your life around. And then from there, knowing what to do next becomes so much easier. Well, not easier, clearer.
That's pretty amazing, and that's some great analogies which you used over there, like a North Star and many more things like that. That's pretty fascinating. And like, there are some fortunate ones who know why, the answer to why. Okay, but there are still people who really don't know what's why for them. Okay, so, and it was for me as well until I was 27, 28. I found out what's why for me, and I still consider myself fortunate that at least I found out. I think that's a pretty big thing for me. So, as most of the students, okay, and most of the people who are listening to this podcast as well, uh, are just getting started with their careers, and some of them are already having career and they would like to transition over something new. And there are people who have known the purpose of their lives, they have known the why of their lives, but they are still stuck because they have bills to pay. They do know that it's hard to transition towards something else. They know changing a track is really, really difficult. Man, I'm talking like you. Okay, so uh, you know knowing all these things, okay, everyone's mindset becomes like, you know what, that's too much of hard work. I'm going to do what I'm going, I'm doing right now. And maybe in the future, I'll do what I want to do. So, what are your initial thoughts on that? And, you know, also, if anyone wants to find out the why of their life or the purpose of their life, what should they start with?
Yeah. So the first thing, right? You said that people tend to be overwhelmed. They tend to hold off. They push it off to the future. I think a lot of the reason behind that is because there's a lot of information overload right now because information is so accessible. If you have internet connection, you can go look up tons of ebooks, podcasts, YouTube videos, influencers, you name it. There's tons of information out there, almost to your own detriment.
Hmm.
So, what it I think the best people at this have the simplest way of explaining things. They don't use fancy alliteration and words and vowels and all that jazz. They break it down in ways that everyone can grasp and understand so that people don't feel intimidated by starting. So I'm not going to tell anyone what they should do, but I'll tell everyone what I did to help me get alignment in my life. Now,
Sure.
before I share, I want to let you know that after you hear this, you only have two options. The first option is to become willfully blind and act as if you didn't hear me and then go on about living your life and know that now that you're aware of what you need to do, now you're going to be hiding and sweeping under the rug as if you didn't see it. That's what we call willfully blind. You see it, you know it's there, you act like it's not there, and you keep on moving on as if it's not there, knowing that it's still there. The second option is that you can go and take massive change in your life by following simple steps, right?
Hmm.
Both of them are risk free because if you don't do anything, right, you don't do anything. But if you
Right.
do something, you try something, you don't get hurt. And so you have to ask yourself, which one is more likely to get you where you want to get to in 6 weeks? So here's the 4 step framework I followed to help me get more alignment in my life. There's this concept called Ikigai, Ikigai. It's a Japanese concept. And I learned this because I was very lost. And my bio looks great. I hired somebody on Fiverr for it. They did an amazing job. But I was at a time, and as you could tell from reading it, there's a ton of different things on there. And I didn't find success in every single one of those things. In fact, I
Hmm.
only really found success on the podcasting side of things. So, let us say, realtor, social media guru, podcast host, serial entrepreneur, all these things listed. I was trying to do all these things at the same time, and nothing was going for myself
Hmm.
because I was trying to build a million different holes and go a mile deep in each of the holes, not realizing that I can't be at 5 places at the same time.
Hmm.
And so I was very lost and I wasn't making any progress. And then I started doubling down because I started reflecting and I was like, what do I need to start doing? So when I came about this concept, it was right at that time where I was just lost, not making any progress. I just had that first social media client and I was like, man, this is not it anymore. The real estate stuff I had to let go. I was like, that's not it anymore. What am I doing? What's going on? And it came to me. And so step number one, if anyone has a pen and paper right now, they could easily start doing this. And it's super quick and simple. What do you love to do? What would you do for the rest of your life if no one ever paid you a penny? Write down everything. Right? What are the things that bring you genuine joy? The things that when you're in it, when you're spending time doing it, you don't realize the time. Time flies. Time doesn't exist when you're doing these things. It could be going out for a walk. It could be playing basketball. It could be playing video games. What are the things that you could do and just you can just escape the world? Right? That's
Hmm.
step number one. Step number two, what does the world need? Write down all the problems you feel compelled to solve. And a lot of times, most people face this issue where, well, they don't know what problems to solve, right? It can be something that's super hard to find. So I like to use this example. Write down everything you feel annoyed that gets you annoyed. For example, one guy was like, hey, I don't want to wait in a grocery store anymore. I hate lines. Boom, we have self checkout. Now no one waits in lines anymore. Right. So
Right.
it's like find the things that annoy you, and that may be a good indicator that that is somewhere where you should put your time, energy, and efforts into. So
Hmm.
that's step number two. Step number three, what can you be rewarded for? A lot of times we do charity work, we do volunteering, we give back, we pour into others, but we still have to make ends meet. We still have to put food on the table. We still have to keep the lights on. So
Mm,
write down ways that you can be rewarded for. For example, let's use podcasting because we're both podcasters. We could do advertising, we could do subscription model, we could do sponsorship. If we have a business, we can use we can get the listeners from our podcast to go into our business and work have them be our clients. We can do collaborations. We could do ad reads. We can do promo swaps. There's so many different ways that we could be rewarded for this if
right,
we so decided to choose. Right.
right.
Step number 4: what are you good at? Or like what I like to say is, what do you have the aptitude to be good at? I had to change it a little bit because a lot of times we don't realize our own talents. And this goes back to the story I mentioned earlier. We don't realize the things that we're good at because it comes second nature to us. So sometimes
Mm,
it takes that external force. It takes that external person to let you know, like, hey, you're actually really good at that. So if you don't have an idea, because a lot of times we like to sell ourselves short, a lot of times we like to discredit ourselves. A lot of times we have insecurities and fears that are standing in the way. So
mm,
ask a couple of your friends, like, hey, what do you think I'm good at? Or hey, what would you come to me for advice for?
mm,
When you think of me, what do you think of? And some of
mm,
these things, you'll start to get a list. And a lot of times we have potential, but we never cultivated it. For example, there's a lot of potential business owners out there that aren't ever going to start a business or might wait for a while to start a business because they might not be the right upbringing. They might
mm,
not be in the right environment. So a lot of the
mm,
times we have skills, they just haven't been cultivated yet. So it doesn't seem as if they're skills. So what do you have to add the aptitude to be good at? So to bring it all together, what do you love to do? What does the
mm.
world need? What you can be rewarded for? What do you have the aptitude to be good at? When all those four intersect, you have found your reason for being. You have found your ikigai. And worst case scenario, if you go through that quick 2-minute exercise, you at least have a list to start trying things out.
Wow, that's something pretty great. And I would like to tell all of you who are sitting, maybe on a couch, maybe on a chair, maybe just chilling at your friend's place, listening to this podcast. Make sure to have a book and a pen to write it down. You can just go back like 10 to 15 seconds and listen to all these steps. And it's ikigai steps. There are some things which I follow as well, like the table cleaning techniques, or no, it was something like, the table techniques, which I have learned from the ikigai concept. So there are so many good concepts over there, and I really feel good right now that there is one more person in the somewhere else around the world who is actually following the same concept. So, great advice. I really appreciate that, John. And knowing that what do you love might not be enough, but you should also know what problem you're solving for the people and how you are going to get rewarded out of it. I mean, that's the steps which I'm pretty sure many people have got today. And I feel all thanks to you for bringing up that concept onto the show as well. However, John, my next part of the question was that many people who would like to transition, they have finally identified that there is something which they are really really good at. Okay, but they are really afraid of going towards that because it's really overwhelming, as you mentioned, and the life becomes more purposeful, but it 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 becomes more tiring, I would say. I don't know. For me, it hasn't been tiring because, this is something which I love. And I feel for most of the people, that would be the case. But still, there is a fear mindset, okay, by which, people just don't like transitioning. They are like, I am in my comfort zone right now. And I feel if I go out of there, there will be things which will be too much, for me to handle. So, what would you like to, advise to them who wants to transition, but they are not because of that fear mindset? And so what would you suggest to them?
I think it's a good mindset to have. You just have to ask yourself, what are you more scared of? Are you scared of making the transition? Are you
Mhm.
scared of making the jump to a new opportunity? Or are you more scared of living to your 80 years old and then regretting your entire life because you spent your entire life in your comfort zone, because you spent your entire life on the sidelines, because you spent your entire life just letting opportunities pass you by? Ask yourself which one fears you most. Because the worst case scenario, if what you try now doesn't work out,
Mm.
at least you have more opportunity to try other things. But
Right.
if you sit on the sideline, if you wait passively, if you just hope for the golden opportunity to finally show up at your doorstep, you will be old and you will not have any time to do any of the things that you wanted. And you will look back and you will regret it all. So it's not about being scared and being not scared. It's about what are you more scared of? Because your time will never ever come back. So be scared. Just make sure you're being scared of the right thing. And time you will never get back. So at least for me personally, I am much more scared of living a life that's not well lived, that's sitting on the sideline, that is in my comfort zone. Because I don't know how far we can take it. And no one knows how far they can take it. Every ceiling that we have to break through was built by ourselves. We have built every ceiling that we have to break through on our own. Every ceiling that we're breaking through now, we've built it. Right. And
Wow.
society may have put something in us to make us built it,
True.
but we have built the ceiling. So you have to understand there is no limit. There is no ceiling to anything that you can do. We are limitless, right? The only time that you can't accomplish whatever you think you can accomplish is because for whatever reason, someone told you, you might have seen something, you might have told yourself, but something told you that there's something in the way, and now you have to break through these ceilings that you've built yourself. And so for anyone that's looking to make the transition,
Mm.
know that in every amazing story, there's some form. I've been looking a lot into the hero's journey, and I've been studying storytelling very recently, like very deeply. And there's always some form of adventure, some form of death and rebirth in it, right? Just think of the
Mm.
Phoenix, right? Think of the story of Jesus Christ, right? There's always some form of death and rebirth. And it's
Mm.
not death as in you dying, but death as in the old you dying, the you that isn't serving you, the you that is crippling you and getting in your own way. And so a lot of us are kind of like a forest. To paint a picture,
Mm.
there is a lot of dead wood. If you burn off all the dead wood, you may start a massive forest fire, but better to burn off all the dead wood and be left with one strong oak still standing to be a giant massive forest filled with nothing but dead wood. So yes, sometimes you'll have to scorch off everything, but it's
Mm.
all for good cause. So the same way you have that fear, you're on the fence. Know that life isn't played on the fence. Make your decision and stick with it and see where it takes you. And if it doesn't take you where you want to go, pivot. But there's nothing good that comes out of sticking on a fence. So remember, what are you more scared of? Taking the opportunity or living a life of regrets?
Well, that's a pretty amazing answer, John. And while you were answering, there was this amazing movie in Bollywood, that's a Hindi movie, which came into my mind, and that was Three Idiots. There is a movie called Three Idiots starring Amir Khan. He's a great Bollywood star, and Madhavan and Sharman Joshi. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so these are the three actors who are, starring in that, and all of them are in the engineering college, and only one wanted to do engineering. Okay, and no, I mean two wanted to do engineering. Yeah, and one was like, pretty. He was in love with machines. The other one was in love in machines, but he was pretty afraid of everything in his life. And the one who wanted to become a wildlife photographer, but just because his parents had great expectations, he went into the engineering college. And
Yeah.
at the end of the movie, the lead role played by Amir Khan, and he says that, after near about 50 or 60 years, when you are lying on the hospital bed and thinking about how you lived your life, you would regret the most. So why don't you take the action right away? And if it doesn't work out, you have nothing to lose. So I feel, the entire part where you're explaining, about what you're most scared of, I feel I was picturing the entire movie in my mind. I mean, that's what had happened in that movie. So, great answer. However, John, I have like a very curious question over here about you. I'm pretty sure many people would be thinking about it, and that's one of the reasons why I'm asking you this question is you being just out of college and know like certain more things about life, about how you can go ahead in life, and many more things. How did you thought, or why all these thought processes are coming into your mind? Is that because you are nurtured that way, like you don't have much of a family pressure, or is it something because you have a great people network around you, and you feel that these are the people I connect with, and you are learning some great things from them?
Yeah, so it all started in my upbringing. So I grew up in the projects, very low income housing. I grew up, it was nine of us in a two-bedroom apartment. We were cramped in there, didn't have a bed until almost fifth grade year we moved. My mother, she suffered from mental health issues. So it was hard to understand that as growing up. My father was absent. We had Section 8, which is like government subsidiaries. And so like
Mm.
pretty much helping me out and my family out. We have food stamps and things like that. So money was always tight, and I never had a set role model to look up to.
Mm.
And growing up in an environment where there's not a lot of abundance, where there's not a lot of affluence and success, there's not
Right.
much people to look up to. So I took that opportunity and I ran with it because one thing, I mean, you could either become part of your environment, but what I decided to do is I would take the good parts of everyone in my life and try to implement that into my life, at least the parts that I felt like I wanted to implement, and I would leave out the bad parts. So I kind of became this giant melting pot of all these different viewpoints and perspectives. And then as I got older in middle school, there would be this game called philosophical chairs. And they would ask the class, "Hey class, what's your favorite snack? Pizza or ice cream?" And I
Hmm.
would watch to see which side had less people. And I would
Hmm.
go on the side with less people, despite whatever my actual answer was, just so I could put myself in the other side's shoes and then argue that side, knowing that there's more people that are against me. So I
Right.
always had this knack for curiosity. I always had this knack for figuring out what makes people think, for figuring out why people do the things that they do, for figuring out why I do the things I do. I spent a lot of time looking within and reflecting. I was a genuinely very curious person. And then around the year of my 12th grade year, senior year of high school, there's this quote, and this is what I choose to adopt my life by. So it is a quote from Plato's Allegory of the Cave, and
Hmm.
it's the duty of the enlightened is to enlighten the unenlightened. I feel as if God blessed me with the gift of wisdom, so I feel like it was my job, my duty to then share everything that I know with other people. Now that's why I share so much. Now the reason I believe I know so much, or at least I know more than a lot of people do at this age, I'll hit you with another quote. The reason I see farther than most is because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. So it's not
Wow.
my wisdom that I'm coming up with. This is the wisdom of all the people who's come across my life, aggregated and synthesized through me. This is not my own things that I spent and came up with. This is the all the people that have been able to impact me and touch my life, all combined together, and then kind of just formed in a way that's to my own flavor.
Wow. I mean, that is just fantabulous. And all I'm thinking right now is, were we brothers somewhere in the last birth? And, in this lifetime, we are just, two, like, oceans away, I would say. But, we have a very similar kind of a story. And I'm so happy that you're doing so great with your life, and, having these amazing shoulders to carry you, and you have this amazing wisdom which you always share with people. And I think the best thing, this is one of the best thing which you do in your life, to enlighten the people and to add values in their life. And I feel, I'm pretty sure that that makes you sleep well every night. Okay. and that's the best thing, right? So, John, we are almost on the verge of ending this show, and this has been a great show. However, there is one last question, and that would be, if people wants to get connected with you, if people wants to hear about your show, and if people wants to, ask you more questions, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, first of all, from one podcaster to another, I appreciate the work that you put into this. I appreciate the work that you do. So continue keeping on with your podcast. I really do appreciate what you got going on. So if anyone found any value in this episode today of what I said, and you want to get more clarity in your life, you want to figure out what it is that is going to be my North Star, I made a quick and easy 6-page ebook for how to find your ikigai that anyone can get. I'll make sure to send you over the link so you can put it in the show notes, and it's quick and easy. I made it super simple and easy to read so that anyone can, as we mentioned earlier, people get overwhelmed by a lot of these stuff because it's such a big question. Like, well, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? What is my why? These questions overwhelm people. So if you want to get rid of the overwhelm, if you want to get the simple answer to finding your why, your reason for being, that'll be in the gift.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So, audience, I'm pretty sure I'm going to mention the link in the description, and also I'll mention each and every link of John's so that you can get in touch with him quickly. So you are just a click away. So make sure to give him a follow, listen to his podcast, and I'm pretty sure it's worth, right? So make sure to do that. And with that being said, if you feel that this episode and this podcast adds value in your life, then make sure to share it with your loved ones. And this is Aditya Mata along with John Mendes signing off from this episode. See you in the next one. Till then, peace out.